What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Josh, and here we talk about mental health, mostly around men's mental health, just kind of daily life things that are going on. And I talk about my experiences, sort of in the hopes of maybe bringing some enlightenment or relief for someone watching this that maybe help them along their journey. So, in the last video, I talked about my ketamine journey and how ketamine saved my life. It was really kind of the catalyst for getting my life back on track, or at least bringing some relief to my life. And I was kind of struggling to think about what I wanted to talk about next, and I thought I would talk about just some of the trends that I experienced when I was going through some of the really dark moments of my life. But not all like dark things, just outlooks and attitudes that I had towards life and people that I see common in men. And, I just want to say that this video and my perspective on things is not meant to coach or even tell you that the way you're living is wrong or inappropriate. It's to one, allow myself to kind of get things off of my chest and share my experiences, but also hopefully reach, another man on the side of this, or a woman, or anyone who identifies by any, sex or gender. And if they're experiencing things that sound like this, maybe hopefully bring them some enlightenment and insight into themselves, if they feel like they experience this as well. So, you know, one of the things that's really difficult for men is the stigma around mental health. And that's honestly like one of the, if not the biggest reason for the creation of this channel, was, to bring light to it and talk about it and let men know that there's other men talking about this subject who are just real people. That's why I don't like to cut these videos at all. That's why sometimes they're really long and they're not exactly clean, but I'm just a real person. I'm not here to make money off of this. I'm not here to receive any type of like fame or publicity. I just want to share my experiences and let other men know that it's really okay to be vulnerable and knock down those walls, and that those walls are up because of stigma and barriers that have been built, through generations of instilling in men that we cannot be vulnerable. We cannot um, open up about how we feel. We can't be soft. We constantly have to be hard and rugged and physically dominant. And I think a lot of times that those outwardly expressed physical embodiments are representations of things that are going on inside of our head. And I think that it's really harmful. And unfortunately, I think that for a long period, and sometimes for some men, it's their entire lives, these ways of thinking and living don't go address, they're never addressed. And for some, that's fine. Again, if you are living a life where you have healthy relationships, or the people around you are fine, and this isn't a problem, great. Like, in my opinion, you don't need to necessarily change something that's not broken. I have found, though, that the ways of living that I used to go by were not congruent with who I was inside. And I think that's like kind of where I want to kick things off, is just with this idea that it's I don't believe vulnerability means weakness. Maybe at one point in time that was the really strong belief. I think the society we live in now, it needs men to be emotionally and mentally vulnerable. And I think in turn, that makes you a stronger man. I say that because culture and society has shifted drastically. Obviously, my lived experience is only mine. I can't speak for the way that my father was raised or his father was raised, but we live in a world now where we have women largely integrated into what were historically just men or masculine roles, and vice versa, and everything is blended now. We don't live by these conformed barriers or walls or however you want to look at it that we were previously used to. And growing up, I was kind of raised in that way that, men did certain things and women did other things. And there's people who are fine with that. That there's people who like that. They want to live like that. And that is fine if it works for you. I found that that wasn't working for me. And I found that keeping these things inside from my childhood or from the military or from just whatever from life, it was detrimental to my mental health. Luckily, I found a person, my wife, who appreciates and supports and loves the fact that I'm open and I'm vulnerable. But it was super important for me to be able to get to that place. And I think one of the reasons why men can't get to that place is because other men judge, and not even just men, there's also a lot of women in the world who look at men that are vulnerable or they cry or express themselves, and they look at them as weak and inferior and not manly. And I think it's really harmful. It is harmful. Um, and I think it goes so much deeper than that, because what it tells men is that they're not allowed to express these things. They're not allowed to talk about their feelings with anyone. They don't have Men in today's society have it a little better now. We're a little more open, but women can go and hang out with each other and for the most part gossip and talk about how they feel and things that are going on in their relationship, and it's an open forum. It's perfectly acceptable. There's very rarely ever any judgment involved in those. Obviously there's circumstances where women do probably judge each other, but for the most part, that's an openly accepted thing, is for women to talk about their emotions and their feelings, and it's accepted, it's encouraged. Women are there to support each other. We saw this really strongly when, and this isn't to get political, but I remember it was a huge point in my life when Trump got elected into office, and there was the marches, the women's marches in DC and all throughout the country. You have women and men supporting women everywhere now, and that is an incredible thing. It's an awesome and it's a needed thing. What we don't have a lot of is men supporting men, and really women supporting men. And I think that that's a really tragic thing, because I am someone who firmly believes that, at least in my opinion, our world, our lives operate best at a 50-50 balance. I understand that there's things that men can and do better than women, and I also acknowledge that there's things that women can and do better than men. And I think that that's great. What I do think is necessary is that we need each other. Whatever your relationship dynamic looks like, it doesn't have to be a heterosexual relationship with men and women. It can be man and man, woman and woman, trans and man, trans and woman, like whatever it is. I believe that it should be 50-50, meaning that you're both there to be accountable for each other when you need it. It's not that the woman or the more feminine person in the relationship is the only person who can be vulnerable or affectionate, and the more masculine partner has to be stern and rigid and can't express themselves. Both partners in the equation, I feel, need to be present. And unfortunately, in today's world, still, and it's been like this for a very long time, men just don't have that. Sorry. Men just don't have that place. They don't have that ecosystem. And we are our own worst enemies. you know. We shun other men who come off as weak or who cry or show vulnerability. And I think that that's really sad. And one of the ways that I was able to kind of overcome that was obviously, for one, coming to terms with who I was. I know that deep down inside, I am someone who is opinionated. I speak how I feel about things. I've been able to sort of adjust the dial to become more empathetic and kinder in the way that I deliver those things. But when I was growing up, I was told from my father that kids didn't have a voice. You know, until I was 18, I wasn't allowed to have an opinion. And that struck a chord for me for whatever reason. And to this day, I just cannot stand when people try to cushion my voice, you know, subdue it. And that doesn't happen a lot, but those are things that I've had to like work through and work on, was understanding that not everything is like personal in my life. You know, not everything is directed at me, but I still am someone who, I am emotional in the ways where I am not afraid to cry in front of my wife. I'm not afraid to cry in front of another man under certain circumstances. That doesn't mean that I am just outwardly walking out in public crying. Um, but I'm not afraid to be emotional with other men in my life. Like, especially when I feel like they're, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I have found that through me becoming more vulnerable and willing to become more vulnerable, other men in my life, friends, you know, family members, have been willing to kind of take that step to becoming a little more vulnerable. I'm not saying that they're doing it to the lengths that I am, but I think that they find comfort in knowing that, hey, there's this dude who served in the military or whatever and is clearly comfortable sharing how he feels about things. Maybe that makes them feel a little uncomfortable to a degree, but I feel like it just opens the door just a little bit to allowing them to feel comfortable of sharing how they feel about something. You know, if they're feeling hurt or sad by something. It's not all the time, but when you know someone well enough to know who they really are and you see any sort of slight change, that's monumental. You know, that can be a shift in the right direction. So that's kind of the starting point, is just like the stigma around men's mental health. Like it needs to end. I don't think we're anywhere close to it. I don't think the resources and the education and the culture is fully there yet. I think we're going in the right direction, but I think it takes more interactions like this to make it just okay, to just normalize men talking about fucked up and sad shit in their life. And I think it makes men stronger, because just because you become more emotionally and mentally vulnerable doesn't mean you have to be physically weak or less of a masculine man. It means you're more in tune with who you are as a person. And I can't like clip this, but we do now, you know, through my schooling and stuff, like we do know that trauma can be transferred through your like genetic coding, through your DNA. It can be passed down. Like your disposition in life, your anxiety, your depression, your mental illness that you have, your trauma, it can be transferred down through your lineage. And if we aren't trying to kind of, for lack of a better saying, like nip it in the butt early on and get ahead of it, these things will just keep repeating them, or they have the opportunity to keep repeating themselves. And I am just someone who doesn't want, I always hated when I heard, it was always like men when I was growing up be like, well, this is how it is, this is how I had it, so like this is how you're going to deal with it. And that never sat well with me. I don't see the point in living a life where you want someone coming after you to have to go through the same exact thing you did, especially if it wasn't positive. It doesn't really make sense to me. Like my I was raised in a way that said like leave things better than the way that you found it. And again, that's not always easy to do, but what is the point of making someone younger than me or a family member, someone that I raise, what's the point of making their life difficult or problematic just because my life was problematic in that aspect? That doesn't make sense to me. I want to make my life as easy as possible for the one coming after me. It doesn't mean life should always be easy, but I want to try and eliminate as many adversities or problems that come up, because those things are going to come up inevitably in that person's life regardless, outside of their control. So the next thing that I kind of feel I felt a lot of, and I feel like this is a super common trend that I see, um, I think a lot in some of the men in my life, some of the friends that I have, is kind of this sense of worthlessness, this lack of identity. For a long time, I didn't believe that having like a purpose in life was necessarily a necessity to living a full life. I thought that people could work their way through life and make means to ends, and that was fine. And I understand that there are a lot of people in life where that is their circumstances. It's my belief, and what I see a common trend is that there's a lot of men right now in their 20s, late 20s, early 30s who they have no direction. They have no purpose. They lack any type of self-worth. And I think it kind of trickles into that category of people we kind of call like incels or incels, the guys who always bash on women, and they're always making fun of people, and they're making derogatory comments to individuals. I get that that's not everyone, but when you feel no worth in your life, when you feel, and I can speak from experience, when I went through a few years of this, of having no direction and no purpose and kind of floating through life like, what the fuck am I doing? You build resentment around you for people who are experiencing good. When you are unable to see a clear path for yourself, it makes it difficult to understand how other people were able to find their path so clearly. You're like, why does that person get that, but I don't? It becomes a finger pointing game. But we always are able to justify our finger pointing. It's there's always like this bias involved in our life, that the ego of our body, of our life, gets in the way of our own path to fulfillment. you know uh, in school, we constantly talk about the ego, and not like the Freud ego of things, but you know my view of ego is like your ego is your own worst enemy. And when you're in the pits of shame and guilt and resentment, your ego is at the forefront. I mean, that motherfucker is shifting gears. They got their hands gripped on the steering wheel. You as a person are riding, maybe not even the back seat, you're in the trunk, and your ego is drifting corners like it's Fast and Furious Tokyo drifting this bitch. It's horrible, and you don't know how to get your life back on track. So you start pointing at other things in life as the reason to why you have zero direction, and it gets into this victimhood mentality. I went on this veteran retreat just over a year ago. It was formed by the Boulder Crest Foundation, and they have these different pockets throughout the nation where vets can go for a week, and they can basically strip themselves of who they are and try and reform their life. And one of the things that this program talks about is the victimhood mentality. And when I, a few years ago, when I was into like the political mind state, I guess. The fuck? I always thought that like the liberals and the weak-minded men were the ones with the victimhood mentality. But really it's all those motherfuckers. It's the conservatives, it's the Republicans, the liberals, the Democrats. Everyone in the spaces has a victimhood mentality. You're just pointing your finger in different directions. And one of the things that this program taught me was that when you're in a victimhood mentality, it's really difficult to get out of. And one of the things that the program tries to teach you is how to get out of the hood, how to get out of that victimhood mentality and take ownership and accountability for your life decisions. Now, that doesn't mean that you're at fault for everything that's happened in your life. It's coming to terms and accepting the things that have happened in your life and moving on. And that takes a lot of time. And part of that time is being vulnerable and having difficult conversations with yourself about one, who you are, where you came from, the people that have affected or hurt you, and are you able to let go of those things? Is it really the liberals' fault that you don't have a job? Is it really the Hispanic man's fault who crossed the border that you don't have a job? Or is that a narrative that's being painted for yourself? You know, how much of your life is truly the fault of someone else? Do those people play a role? Yeah, maybe. But do those people have all the control over you? Absolutely not. And one of the things that I learned on how to get out of that victimhood mentality and stop pointing fingers at everyone was to take accountability for the things that I've done and also try and take back control of how I move forward in life. And one of the things that I learned was that there's two things that I have absolute control over in my life. That is my attitude and my effort. So I have full control over how I approach every day and the attitude that I bring. If something bad or negative happens to me, am I going to react to that situation equally? Or am I going to take a step back and respond? Am I going to continue to take things personally as if it was this situation happened directly to me because it was personal? Or is it just a situation in life? And I have to now navigate through this path and figure it out. The other aspect of it is the amount of effort I give. What kind of effort am I giving? Am I waking up every day sulking, self-loathing, pitying myself, blaming everyone else around me? Is that what a man is supposed to act like? Or am I going to start taking accountability? Am I going to put in the effort to try and change? Am I going to keep talking about the things that I want to do? Or am I going to finally start doing them? Am I going to be nicer towards my wife and the people around me? Or are they always going to be the problem for why I can't change? Now, that's like a snippet. And again, those are all just words. But at some point, we as men do have to start taking accountability. It doesn't mean that you have to be responsible for everything that's happened in life or what's happened to you in life, but you do have control and direction over what happens the rest of the day and what happens tomorrow. At least in your life, you do. So that's kind of that. I know I kind of went on a rant there and that kind of happens, but I see so many. It's not so many. There's a few people in my life and I see it on social media and stuff where I just see these men, obviously a lot of it's online and there's nothing wrong with like online streaming or gaming. Like I'm all for people finding outlets that bring them happiness and joy. What is the problem is like when you build these like hive mind mentalities where, you feel a certain way and then everyone in that group just echoes back to you what you want to hear. And I don't always think that that's productive or healthy. It's one thing to hear someone and dialogue it back to them, to empathize with them and try and understand what they're feeling, but that doesn't mean that necessarily their outlooks are healthy. And I think that there's just a lot of men right now who lack empathy and understanding and cultural awareness and just seeing things from the other side of the coin. When I first entered into my school program, I was in a culture class, and we learned something in counseling about how culture is a huge part of therapy. And what I mean by that is that my cultural background and my experience in life are going to be vastly different from someone else. And how do I counsel or work with an individual with a completely different background? How do I understand them? So, for example, like, how do I, as a 34-year-old white man, work with a 68-year-old Black woman? How do I relate to that individual? Is it important for me to relate to that individual? How do I understand this woman's lived experiences when I share zero commonality with her? And in this class, I really struggled with coming to terms with my lack of, or my cultural background, and how much of a role it plays in my life, or how little I know about it. And I think one of the things that I was projecting outwardly was like, well, this doesn't match something that I feel is important, so it's stupid. And it kind of took me back to when I kind of was in this like ignorant mind state where I felt like any type of marginalized or minority group that received any type of benefit or accessory was wrong. Not wrong, but I'll just say this. A professor looked at me and said, "Josh, more for thee does not mean less for me." And it shook my entire world. And I might have said that in a previous video, but what he meant by it was, just because someone else is receiving something doesn't mean that something is being taken away from you. And what I see so much of now, and I think this is where so much of this kind of ignorant, lack of awareness mentality comes from, a lot of times from men, is this belief that if someone else that doesn't look like me is receiving something, something is being stripped away from me. And it's just it's wrong. But that doesn't have to be a mentality that we continue to live with. It's something that can be unlearned, or you can learn to empathize with other individuals based on their experiences. Just because someone is getting a ramp installed at their building for wheelchair access doesn't mean that the stairs are being removed for me to get into the building. It doesn't mean that there's some agenda being pushed that's anti-man or anti-white people. It just means we're trying to afford accessibility to other people who don't look and interact with the world the same way that we do. And I see so much online and sometimes with people I know where there's this mentality of just not being able to understand the other side of the coin because they've never been hit in the face with that type of reality, I don't think. Or when they did feel like they had an experience similar to that, the world didn't recognize them in the same way that it recognizes other people. And that's a real thing. That's a very real thing where men, like I said, with stigma, like If a man expresses how he feels or brings up something about how he feels, the world might not react to him the same way that it does a disabled person or a black woman or a Hispanic man. It might not. So we as individuals, like we as men, have to understand that just because it doesn't react the same doesn't mean that it's a personal agenda necessarily. It doesn't mean that there's some organization out against us. We have to find our own path, and that begins with us. It begins with us being supportive of each other when we need to come clean or come forth with something that bothers us, or we're afraid to share, or we're scared to cry. We need to become vulnerable about these things. So, I don't know. I had other notes about things, but like I'm already at 31 minutes, and I hope I was able to kind of get something across there. Um, again, I know that these videos are long at times, and there's no cuts or anything, but everyone, sorry about that. My iPhone filled up with max storage, so I'm gonna wrap this up though. Anyway, I appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a comment for any types of videos you want to see in the future. With that being said, I'll see you next time. See you.